welcome to the Regular Joe's podcast. I'm Dave Pisani.
I'm Barry Kay.
And I'm Todd Pleasant.
Speaking of Rhode Island Comic Con, we're going to be there.
Some of us.
In, 6 weeks? Barry's not. But
I'll be there in spirit.
I think 4 of the 5 Regular Joes will be there. Daryl said he's coming. So if you're going, let us know if you're going. It's a lot of good guests. It's November, I don't know, 3rd-ish, somewhere around
Something
there.
like that.
In Rhode Island at the Rhode Island Convention Center next door to the Omni Providence.
You know, Todd.
Duncan Center, isn't it?
Duncan Center is. Yeah, I guess
don't know.
so. No, I don't know if it's a Duncan Center
I don't think it is
anymore.
I think they renamed it.
I think Duncan stopped being the thing last year.
Yeah, it was something else last year. But Todd, I was just going to say, I'm not actually leaving for my trip till Saturday. So if you guys go to the lobby Friday night, if you set up that new gear, I could phone in.
You could totally phone in.
Ooh.
Boy, I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, we should think about that, because I would definitely do that. I'd even call in. I could call in Saturday night too, because we don't leave for our actual trip till Sunday, but I have to fly down to Florida on Saturday. So anyway,
we should work these logistics out sometime when we're not recording.
Yeah, I was going to say we should figure this out when we're not making a podcast.
This is
a good thing to tell us
need
during the pre-show, Barry.
Yeah.
To FaceTime Barry and have him on a
we're totally doing
on a iPad.
We're totally doing virtual Barry. I'm going to have a 12-inch iPad on a stand, and he's going to sit between us.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So
that would be perfect.
I would love that.
That would be great. Why not?
Virtual Barry.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like I'm there, only I'm not.
Yep.
I said I wasn't coughing, but I'm coughing, so sorry, people.
It's cold and
all right,
season.
today we're going to do a bunch of stuff, but first we're going to do some random. Barry claims he has a lot.
I don't have a lot, but I do have some. I'll start with this one because I do have a lot of respect for Martin Scorsese. I've said it before, I'll say it again. But he's opened his mouth again. So he was... Variety reported this. It was from a recent GQ interview. When asked about the comic book franchises, Scorsese said that their omnipresence could be negative to audiences who aren't well-versed in other types of film. The danger is that he says, the danger there is what it's doing to our culture, because there are going to be generations that now think movies are only those, that's what movies are. So
don't make a movie every 15 years. Put something out,
the
buddy.
Interviewer posited that the audiences might already believe that. Scorsese agreed, and then he said they already think that, which means that what we have to do is fight back stronger. It's got to be from the grassroots level. It's got to come from filmmakers themselves. You'll have to know the Safdie brothers, and you'll have to have Chris Nolan. You know what I mean? We have to hit them from all sides, and don't give up. Let's see what you got. Get out there and do it. Go reinvent. Don't complain about it, but it's true, because we've got to save cinema.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Make something other than a gangster movie.
I like Scorsese, most of Scorsese's movies, not all of them, but, dude, just accept that there's all different kinds of...
They're all different. There's all different movies.
Yeah, and then...
I like...
They asked him...
Goodfellas, and I like Captain America.
Me too. The director also spoke about the streaming era and the definition of, quote, content, as opposed to actual cinema. There's Virtual Barry. Todd's holding me up on an iPad. I can send you a better picture than that.
No, you're going to be live on the...
No, that's true. I'll be live. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway,
I hope you have good Wi-Fi wherever you're going.
Yeah, I should.
I'm sorry to interrupt Martin Scorsese, but he's boring.
Yeah. So the last thing here is he's talking about the definition between content as opposed to actual cinema. I won't read it. He's stupid.
So here's the point. Martin Scorsese thinks theatergoers are stupid, and therefore we need to make other content because they are stupid. Right?
I just love the quote, "We've got to save cinema." Like, Oppenheimer made $1 billion. So did Barbie. There's different types of movies, in the same weekend, by the way. Like, those two movies came out literally
Yeah.
the same day. Like, there are different types of movies for different types of movie goers. I don't
And you
think...
could like multiple things.
Yeah, I do. I like lots of different kinds of movies. It does. It just.
And I
I
will
don't
tell
get
you-
why this has to be a conversation.
No, and these other types of movies that he seems to have such a huge problem with actually keep people going to the movies. They get people in the habit of going to the movies. I don't understand why it has to be just like it was in the 70s for
Rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly.
To use a quote from Aristotle.
Yeah, and definitely things are changing. And there aren't as many diverse types of movies coming out as there used to be, but that has as much to do with the studios and what they're willing to finance as it does anything else. And
also directors who, as they get later in their careers, become very formulaic and do a whole lot of the same things over and over again. No,
Martin.
Yeah, sorry, Martin, but
I mean, Expendables 5 or 6 or 12 came out this weekend. 4
Got
and
killed.
it tanked. I mean, I've never seen an Expendables, but
I think I saw one. They're not
good, but
The thing that gets me is the number one movie for 3 weeks in a row is The Nun 2, a horror movie. People like horror movies.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah, but okay,
I
it's
wouldn't
number
see
2
that
with
if
nothing else.
Force me.
Nothing really else in the market. I mean, it's not making a ton of money. It's just making money.
No, something else. First week it made $35 million. Something else just came out that didn't do well at all.
So let me ask you a related question. Have either of you seen Barbie?
Still no.
Yeah, I sat down. We were looking to see what to watch. It's still very expensive. Even to rent, it was
it's still
$20.
$25 to rent and it's $25 to rent, $30 to buy. We rented it this
I'll wait
weekend.
for it to be
we
free.
rented it this weekend. It's fine. It was perfectly fine.
We rented that Jennifer Lawrence movie.
I want to see that.
It could have been funnier.
Yeah. So could Barbie.
There's full frontal nudity.
Yeah, that's part of why I want to watch it.
In a weird
I do like
way.
Jennifer. Well, it's a beach.
I give her a lot
fight,
of credit.
It's like a fight on a beach.
She's doing something. Yeah, she's being edgy and good for her.
I like Jennifer Lawrence. So
yeah, so do I.
But Barbie was okay. I don't
I'll
know how
see
it made
it.
$1 billion,
I ain't got no problem
but
with
it's
it.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Good on him.
Okay, Todd, what you got?
So, in an interview, David Goyer just said that Jake Gyllenhaal was his top choice for Batman in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. That he actually
saw
preferred him. Now, think about this. So
He's very young back then.
well, no. There's a whole other ramification of this, Dave. Just brace yourself for this. So, if, as we saw in Flashpoint, there is some universe where he was Batman, Dave, in that universe, we can absolutely be assured that Rachel Dawes is not played by Maggie Gyllenhaal,
by his Maggie Gyllenhaal,
who is his sister.
Perfect.
Because that would
Yeah.
even in that universe, that would be creepy.
That's funny. It's funny. I have not that, but I was rolling through my typical sites of where to get stories. There were no fewer than 8 David Goyer stories.
It all came out
taken
of
from
one,
the same
one interview
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like seriously, this is I complained about this a couple of weeks ago.
But no one's
Different
doing
writers
press releases
are
right
all
now.
taking stories.
No one's doing press releases, so they're digging up these old book quotes and stuff like this and generating content based on it.
But they're just taking stuff from podcasts. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Because that's the only place anybody's doing interviews.
Yep.
Yeah,
And a
but
lot of these people are doing interviews.
Wait. David Goyer is... What's he doing? He is not promoting anything new.
No, he's not
So-
talking about anything at this point.
But nobody's promoting anything new. Like they're going on podcasts and saying, you can ask me about my old movies, but you can't ask me about anything.
Exactly.
And then people are
and
taking
that's
a million
where this
quotes.
stuff
There
is
were
coming from.
A million quotes from him.
Another thing I read says, here's the quote: "New Wonder Woman rumor says that Gal Gadot will return to play superhero, despite rumors to the contrary." There is nothing in this article indicative of that. It basically says, according to sources, and nobody says what the sources are, from some other article. It's like,
It's just such nonsense. It's
just-
so, you can't even... and then half of these are probably AI generated. It's like...
a site called My Time to Shine Hello posted a thing on Twitter, and this is what this is based on.
That's one of
People, feel free to quote our show.
That's one of my favorite sites, by the way. I love that site.
Okay, sorry, Barry. I didn't mean to diss one of your favorite news sources, but
it's all right.
It's like comic book resources or whatever.
I prefer the World Weekly News, but hey, it's to each their own.
Well, even Geek Tyrant, which used to be good, is all podcast quotes.
But Geek Tyrant has always been an aggregator. And it's still doing the same thing it's always done. There's just nothing to aggregate.
But
there's nothing to aggregate.
But there's people writing stories.
Right.
There's people writing stories, but the stories they're writing are from listening to the podcast. Yeah. I don't know. Media or
something just sort of related, because we were just talking about the strike and what people can and can't talk about. Somebody in one of the autograph groups, Dave, was posting pictures that they had gotten this weekend at a convention. And I'm drawing a blank on the actress's name, but she's in Strange New Worlds. She's a security chief. Noonien Singh. I don't remember the actress.
That Christina Chong or something?
Yes. So she was there. She had no photos from Star Trek on her table. It was all like pictures of her, like I guess from whatever. But like... Good. I mean, good that they're there signing autographs, and I'm sure if you brought your own item, they would have signed it. But
that's the interesting thing. Would she sign stuff if you brought stuff?
I'm sure she would, but
I think
she's trying to state.
But
she's trying to color within the lines.
I wouldn't think to bring a picture of her. I'd be pissed off about that.
Yeah, if you didn't bring something and you went there expecting she'd have a picture from Star Trek, and all she had was pictures of herself, like in nice clothing, like, I mean, it's her. It's a photo of her, but it's not the picture you want. You want the picture of her in Star Trek uniform.
That's interesting. I wonder at Rhode Island, most of the people are has-beens, but good ones.
Well, let's hope maybe the strike might be over in 6 weeks. So
yeah, probably by that it will. Now the writer's strike is settled.
Yeah.
So
apparently settled. Yep,
that's a good.
Yep. As we record, they say they have a tentative agreement, and it should be ratified within 3 days. So
yeah.
I already got people asking me from whatever. I'm not even going to get into it.
Yep.
What do I? So I did have that David Goyer thing. Our pals Amazon are going to start putting ads in their Amazon Prime content.
Unless you pay extra.
Interesting. They're not introducing an ad tier. The regular tier that you pay for now becomes ad, and if you want no ads, you have to pay more. That kind of is not great at all.
Well, considering most of us get access to it by paying $100 a year for Amazon.
And remember,
it's way more than that. If you
remember, we were paying for this. And then they said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to add a streaming service to it, to the shipping thing that you've got."
Yeah, I know. I still love Amazon. I still know I make money on all the stuff I order because I order such volume of things that the free shipping alone is worth it. But that just kind of annoys me.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I don't know if I'm going to see how many commercials there are, but I'm not watching freaking.
How often do you watch anything on Amazon, though? I don't watch that much on it. I don't watch much on Amazon.
Jack Ryan I'm watching. I watched, what did we watch? Paper Girls that was on Amazon. Yep. I just watched something else.
That's two shows in the last year. There's been a few things.
Am I wrong? Is the
Lord of the Rings, when that comes back, I'll be pissed.
Is on Amazon. Yeah. Is Lioness on Amazon, or is that something else?
Paramount Plus, I think.
That's why I haven't finished it. Okay. I forgot where it was.
I've never even heard of that.
It's actually not bad.
That's a Zoe Saldana sort of CIA.
Oh, that thing. Yeah.
Thing. It's okay.
It's okay.
I watched the first episode of that. It didn't hook me.
No, I think it's good. I got to get back to finishing that. I keep making the mistake of starting watching these things with Karen, and then you're cheat watching if you
can't do it.
No. So I think we have.
I
think we're stalled on.
We're stalled on
4 shows now. Randomly talking about shows. I'm going to throw something in here. Okay. I just finished the second season of Foundation.
Oh my God, you did!
I think it's good. I got to say, I
couldn't even get.
I didn't make it through the first season,
and it took me a long time. It took me a long time, and this is the slow burn of slow burns. But I mean, they're still talking about doing 8 seasons of this. Production value wise, this thing is, magnificent. I mean, it's beautiful. It's and I think it's in terms of It's one of the best produced hard science fiction things ever. And I actually found at the end of the second season, they wrapped up a lot of things. I was actually liking it. And like I said, it was just really, really surprising to me.
It's surprising to me too, because first season was
unwatchable. It's not like God, what was the show we watched? Raised by Wolves, where you just keep going further down the hole. This, all of a sudden, these disparate threads start coming together, and everything means something. And it's like I said, I was surprised.
I get it.
When it was over, I liked it. I realized I liked it, and I wasn't just watching it to watch something.
Okay.
So
I'm torturing myself with a show that I think you might have watched. Did you watch Invasion on Apple?
Yeah, so where are you in Invasion?
I am one episode away from finishing season 1, and I feel like every episode I'm like, why am I watching this?
Okay, so
it's not good.
Season 2 is better. Okay, we're like 4 episodes in season 2. I find everything when the mother with the 2 kids is on screen is almost unwatchable. All the other I like all the other storylines.
There were 2 episodes in a row where I was watching it during the day, and it was just a black screen. Like, I needed to be in pure darkness to even see what was going on.
Yeah.
And I was watching a black screen going, why am I watching this show? This is not good.
Yeah. But, like I said, because
I wanted to see the actual invasion. Stupid me. I'm like 9 hours into this thing, and I'm like, can I see a fucking alien, please?
Yeah, you do get there is payoff. You do get to see the aliens. I like the soldier guy.
No payoff is after 9 episodes.
It was little kids on school buses, and they're picking on each other, and none of this had anything to do with anything.
The Lord of the Flies story gets good. The soldier story gets good. Everything sort of converges together ultimately. But like I said, I just when we get an episode, the Japanese woman story is now very interesting.
Too much reading. Character. I don't like reading when I watch TV.
Oh, I don't blame you.
They switch that to English.
Slow.
Okay, she goes to the U.S. to switch to English, but I got to tell you the Iranian/Syrian woman,
nothing made me happier than when her husband actually died.
Yes,
I was glad.
And I'm like, keep going, kill the kids, kill her, and it's like, all right.
Let's. No one knows what the hell we're talking about.
Barry, people are watching the show. So, yeah,
two of the 3 people on this show.
So,
what else?
I was going to just say I read today on Screen Rant that they are talking about rebooting The Office with original showrunner Greg Daniels, and that it's going to be. They're waiting for the writer's strike to be officially over before they announce it, but it's on a list of things that's going to be announced when the strike's over.
How do you reboot something that's not even 10 years out?
They're just going to recast it and start over with a new office of people.
There's no new ideas left.
I'm not sure that I want this.
Do you, or do you go back to that office and everyone has moved on except Creed? I mean, it's like, right? It's 10 years later. Everybody else has moved on and done something else. I wouldn't reboot.
I just don't know if you can capture lightning in a bottle.
It's the second reboot of that series.
Yeah, it was.
Well, but the first one was a British thing that it's not like it was an American show that they rebooted again as an American show. This would be the...
No, but I'm saying you're still taking the same source material and going back to the well 3 times. I say, reopen that office, okay, that was shuttered during whatever time. Reopen that office and do people buy
Maybe
paper
that's
anymore?
Their plan, is it's a post-COVID back to the office thing.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know. I just
you get a boss who
that...
never. I'm writing this as we speak. You get a boss who's always a telepresence. He's never, he's always zooming, but you never actually see him. And it's.
I don't know. Anyway, I just thought it was
interesting.
Any other
random?
I thought it was interesting. So I had one other thing. Quick question for you guys. Did you guys see the trailer for Doctor Who's 60th anniversary? Do you care anymore?
I heard about it. I don't care.
I do.
The trailer looks really good. So
he is the only thing that's excited me about this franchise for 5 years. So, and I've watched. I've watched all of it. I've watched all of it.
It's
and it's been
on
excruciating
Disney Plus?
at times.
Is it on Disney Plus?
No, I think
think
it's still on BBC America.
No.
I think
No,
in the
I think
outside
it's
of
on
the
Disney
UK, outside of the US, it's on Disney Plus.
Oh, is that what they were saying?
There's something where it's but
Yeah, I saw that announcement. I didn't watch it.
yeah.
It's been.
So, and I
got rid of my TiVo that has two or three seasons on.
Well,
it
I don't feel like I
never
feel like
watched.
the seasons I didn't watch, I don't need to have watched, but this might be interesting enough to get me to start watching it again.
Yeah, I could do that. I hear you.
And they said that he's playing a character called the Toymaker who hasn't been seen since 1966 in the series. So, I don't know.
And David Tennant is back. That's
David
just
Tennant's
weird.
back. Catherine Tate's back.
I don't like her.
I liked her in
But
this show. I mean, I liked
It's
her in The
odd
Office.
that
too.
how does I mean I think obviously they're just doing it because was he the most favorite doctor
Yes,
of recent
he
times?
has. He has
And
been. The other thing, though,
I
is,
would think
is
he's my favorite doctor.
there was there was kind of a unfinished business thing with her character, and they're gonna go back and deal with that. And they've actually I saw someone cast as her daughter, so it's gonna be sometime later.
So wait, David Tennant had who? He had Rose,
Yep, Martha,
and he had Catherine Tate.
No, Martha.
And he had someone else.
Rose, Martha, and then
He had
then Catherine Tate. Yes,
the three companions.
I don't know. I was like, maybe it's just because I've gone a few years and I never watched any of the really crappy seasons that this actually got me excited.
Yeah,
again.
no, I could be enticed to
I guess they're
jump back
doing it
in.
as a couple of specials. It's not.
a couple specials.
It's
Yeah.
not like a full series. But anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually finished
anything
this
else?
series so I could see her regenerate into him, and that was
I'm sure they'll show that in the beginning.
that was the best thing in 4 years, maybe 5. So
I don't feel bad that I missed all of it.
Yeah. You know who I don't miss? No, that's not true. You know who I miss? Fanboy Collectibles. I do miss Fanboy. I haven't bought anything in. Well, I bought stuff. It just hasn't. Just stuff in the
pre-order
queue.
stuff.
But up for pre-order, Exo 6 Savick. I didn't know he was going to get that. That could entice me to get it. We'll talk about that off the air. Gentle Giant Indie, big giant premium format Indie. There's a Gentle Giant Vader. There's a Gentle Giant Mando. There's a Sideshow premium format Captain Marvel, which looks awesome. Everything you need. Pops and Sideshow and Kotobukias and Hot Toys and Gentle Giant Diamond and
There's
statues.
a bunch
and
of
all
really
that
cool
stuff.
Gentle Giant like mini busts. Like mini busts were a huge thing back in the day. And
Hondo.
I feel like they went away for a little while, but there's a lot of really cool ones now.
A lot of stuff. Ton of cool stuff. And I hate to say it, holidays are going to be here before you know
That's
it.
right.
It's already can you believe it's the end of September? It was just summer.
I know.
And now it's the end of September.
I know.
Item
That's
that
nuts.
I ordered for a present just came in for Chris, so it's going to be here in time. So that's cool. So
Sweet.
yep.
Cool. So check them out, fanboycollectibles.com. Check them out at their store in Newtown, Connecticut. Tell them the Regular Joe sent you. Okay. This doesn't sound like we have nothing to talk about, but no. Here was my idea, and I think we've covered some of this, but I'm curious. So our friend Brian, one of the Regular Joes, shared a bunch of pictures. Brian was this guy. He's not here, but it just made me think. Brian was a guy who was very much into what he was into, even at a young age. He showed us all these pictures.
I don't think
back
we
from
should
the
be saying that
70s.
in the past tense.
Yeah, Brian's still alive.
No, Brian
When
is
you
a
say
guy.
He's not
but
with
he-
us.
who-
It's not that
no,
he's dead.
Brian
He
is
is
a
a
guy.
guy.
No, but I'm saying who always has been very much what he's.
Yes,
yeah.
that's true.
Yep.
So, even in the 70s, he was dressing up in Sandman costumes from Logan's Run, and he was doing Star Trek. Looks like fan groups dressed in costumes and
But
stuff.
here's the thing. I don't feel like any of that existed here on the East Coast when we were that age.
Not in the
he
same
had a
way.
whole group of people out in California that...
I bet it did, and I know for me, and that's what got me to thinking. So my thought is that I want us to talk about of the stuff of the genre stuff, and I put science fiction, TV, movies, and comic books, reading comic books, all in that sort of our genre. Like, other than the reading, the watching TV, or going to the movies, what other stuff did you do? Some people like, oh yeah, I love comic books. I read comic books. That's it. Nothing. So, but I just don't know. When I was a kid, I had a couple friends who were into comic books. I don't know that other than me and my brother, I don't know anyone who was into Star Trek. But so we were not out there dressing up, and I'm sure there were people, but I didn't really know any. Brian seemed to have known a ton of them. So,
and
maybe we're
the big surprise to all of us, there were some actually like attractive women in his group of friends dressing up well, which blows my mind.
That stuff was not on the East Coast.
No, that was not happening here.
There were not cute girls into Star Trek.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then we've talked about it. So I was trying to think, like, my earliest sort of genre memories certainly started with comic books, and it's got to be, early 70s, 74, 5 for sure, and it all seemed to converge at the same time. Comic books, Star Trek, science fiction movies, all in that sort of 74 to 70. I'm saying pre-Star Wars, 76, sort of all that stuff. So what about before the stuff? Like, when did you guys realize you got into that? I got a question for you, Dave.
Did you ever read like the Gold Key Star Trek comics?
I did. I had some of those. Yep. Yes. And I don't know. I feel like comics were probably a little before I got into Star Trek. And here on the East, I didn't obviously. Not obviously, but I was not old enough to have seen the first run, but the syndication run, Channel 11 here in New York, ran it every single night at 6 o'clock, and I watched it every single night at 6 o'clock.
So I would just say with my Star Trek thing was one of my earliest nerdy things, and it was on every afternoon, and I would go home and watch it every afternoon, and I had one friend who I knew watched it every afternoon, and we would then the next day talk through the episodes. They were never shown in order.
Really?
They were never shown anything close to order. But those are the earliest conversations I remember of, like, picking out the elements of, like, different uniform stuff and different stuff. When did this show up and when did that show up? And that kind of thing. And it was the first, like, time I consciously remember it's the first time I was actually nerding out on something where I was analyzing it as something other than just like watching it in the moment. And that's actually my friend Brian.
Doing more than just sitting watching and moving on.
That's my friend Brian. Not the same Brian who, Barry, you met when we went to the Star Trek experience.
Yep, I met him.
But Brian's been my Star Trek buddy since, I think, 5th grade. So,
for you, that was pre-comics?
What's that?
Pre-comic books?
I've read comic books, like, going back to, like, probably 8 or 9, 10, somewhere. So that was always concurrent. And one of the reasons I mentioned the Gold Key Star Trek comics was I read those back in the day, and
I had some of them.
And I read like the little digest reprints of them back in the day, and I remember them being really incongruous with the series itself. And that, like, just a lot of stuff did not match up. But I remember, like, there were no other Star Trek stories. You had what was on the shows, and you had that. And people kept talking about another series, but that was it. I didn't learn until just a few years ago that the guy that actually drew the Star Trek stories had never seen an episode of Star Trek. All he had ever seen was publicity. He was a guy in Italy, and all he had ever seen was publicity photos. So everything, the reason the bridge was so much bigger was because he'd only seen like one half of the bridge. And the reason that, shuttlecrafts didn't look like shuttlecrafts was because it was just crazy. But like I said, it was just, he said he just extrapolated and, made their own spacesuits and made all that kind of stuff. But like I said, I remember actively picking that apart as a kid and noticing those differences, and the same thing with the thing. And I think that was, for me, it was that, and then any other TV sci-fi I could get my hands on. So,
Barry, what about you?
Yeah, I'm a couple years younger than you guys, so I was not I mean, I was watching Star Trek in reruns probably on the same nights or same afternoons that you were, Dave. But for me, like mid-70s, I was playing with the Mego Star Trek toys. I was watching the episodes. I didn't start reading comic books until a little bit later in the 70s, probably maybe 76, 77. But I never read a Star Trek comic book back in the day.
Those weren't even like, I don't even know if you could find those on the.
By the time I was looking, no. I mean,
at 7-Eleven, I never saw.
Like I said, I saw them as
comics.
digests. Yep.
I was buying Marvel comics. Some of my earliest memories, I remember going to comic book shows before they called them conventions. It was in the basement of like a hotel on Hempstead Turnpike in Levittown.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm curious
and
about.
I went to those kind of things with I had one friend who was similar to you, Todd. I had my friend Jeff, who was really into the same stuff I was into, comic books and Star Trek. And I drew a lot when I was a kid. I used to draw a lot. And
Me too. That's what I was wondering. What kind of stuff?
But Jeff had an older brother who was probably 3 or 4 years older than us, who was also into that stuff, and he was the one that would educate us because we were a little too young to pick up on a lot of it. But he was the one kind of helping us curate which were the good comics to get. He would talk about Star Trek. He was the one that was telling us about Star Wars before, he had heard about it before anybody that we knew about it. So and I was building models. So I would build all of the Star Trek models. I had every single one back in the
Me too.
Mid to late 70s. All again pre-Star Wars, right? But that was my thing. It was Mego Star Trek toys, Star Trek model kits, and comic books. Really,
I can remember, and it just,
I
just say I have not thought about this in 50 plus years, but I can remember when promos came on for the Star Trek reruns, and at that point I was probably 9, okay, and I remember calling it Star Trek, and one of my brother's friends who were like 3 years older than me corrected me and explained to me what the word Trek actually meant, because in my mind, it was Star Trek. It was just, you're 7, 8 years old. I knew it more from like the Star Trek guns, little plastic disc guns and stuff like this. And then, like I said, the whole world opened up. But that was, so I was conscious of it even before I had seen it. So
I don't remember, really first, it doesn't stick in my mind,
how did we discover Star Trek, right?
Did I turn the TV on and see it? But I was going to say, Batman does precede Star Trek for me, because I distinctly remember where I grew up, we had the dining room that didn't have dining room furniture. It was our playroom, and we had this black and white TV. And I remember, and this has got to be, so if Star Trek was, say, 9 or 10, I was probably 6 or 7 maybe when Batman was on.
This explains things.
And,
yes. Yep.
And that's when I, Batgirl, as I've told to Yvonne Craig, may she rest in peace. That's when I realized I like women, when I saw her. But I do remember, so I remember watching, but, I was never old enough to even get comic books. I did have a Batman costume, though. I know when I was a kid, I would sit in my Batman costume and watch Batman on Channel 5 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That was the first. But then when Star Trek was really the first thing I got involved in other ways.
Was it on Channel 5? I remembered it being on Channel 9.
I am pretty sure Batman was on Channel 5 and Star Trek was on Channel 11.
I know Star Trek was on 11, yeah.
It's so funny because I'd love to what episode did I first watch Star Trek, and I have no recollection of that. Although unrelated, I know exactly when I realized Charlie's Angels was the greatest thing. I walked in and my mother was watching an episode of Angels in Chains. Remember when they were in prison?
Yeah,
and they were
it's like episode 3.
This could be the greatest show ever.
Yep.
I distinctly remember seeing that.
That's so funny.
And then it was
none of us at that age questioned how your hair was still blow dried when you were in prison. But
but Perfect.
So
I-
how old were each of you when Star Wars came out? Because I was 9.
Before we get to the
Star
70s, I can say, I just looked this. I am almost positive that I remember watching Batman as it aired in the final season. So, I mean, I was 5 years old, okay? But I do remember watching it at night, and I remember the cliffhangers at the end, and I remember like an Egghead episode or something like that. So, because I remember just being, I remember the products, the puzzles, things like that, the product tie-ins, but it was too late for me. And then in the last year, seeing some of the episodes, and then it being a few years before it came in syndication.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So
I don't remember seeing that. I definitely, and we did have a Batcave, and I remember it. I don't know exactly what it looked like. It was this cardboard thing that we had in that playroom, and it was some kind of Batcave. I wish I knew what it looked like. I don't have any pictures of it, but I do have a picture somewhere of me in my Batman costume. So, but in terms of like Barry, the stuff like you liked Star Trek, so you built Star Trek models. I liked Star Trek. I actually built Star Trek models, and I remember getting one of the the Deltas and putting it on like a blue long sleeve Toughskins shirt that I had and wearing it to school. So that was like I think my very first costume.
my sister, do you remember liquid embroidery? It was like you kind of put it on. It was in like a tube, and you would like put it on.
It was like a puffy pink pen kind of
and
thing.
then it would like harden. So my sister made me. We found a blue shirt that looked like a Star Trek tunic, and she actually put a science logo on it with that, and she made it gold, and then went over the edge with black.
That's great.
And then put the little thing which she drew as Saturn. Okay, I remember that. It looked like Saturn. The two rings. It was like a ball with the because again you didn't have reference material. But I remember. So yeah, I did the same exact thing, and I did wear it to school. So. Yep.
And I just remembered that was now that I remember that was probably 10. We used to watch Superman.
Yep.
When I was even younger. Now Superman started in the 50s, the black and white George Reeves Superman. And my grandmother worked in Manhattan in the garment industry, and they made like kids clothes. So I would literally say, "Hey, can you make me a Superman shirt?" And she'd come home with a Superman shirt with the cape attached and everything.
Wow.
I wish I had that. That's
awesome.
So that's got to be like very early 70s.
Now that you say that,
I remember
probably watched Batman and the Superman reruns, but I enjoyed them. They didn't have the impact on me that Star Trek had, but I was also a little bit older by the time I saw Star Trek.
But I definitely I wanted costumes. That was sort of I just remember that, and everything was this weird polyester material, but it was all the right colors, and they had embroidered and stuff.
But if
that was awesome.
If I was
stuff.
9 when Star Wars came out, that means I was watching the Star Trek reruns and all that. I was probably 6 and 7.
Yeah.
It was mid 70s, right? It was like 74, 75.
It was 75, 76.
So
that kind of thing.
Before we fast forward to Star Trek, I can watch and I've been watching the animated series, Star Trek the animated series. I can tell you where I was when I watched where in the house, which TV, whether it was the playroom TV, whether it was the living room TV, where I saw every single episode. I'm watching these things.
Well, that was 73, 74.
Right. So I was
never
10.
Watched
I watched
those.
those. I did watch
peak
them.
absorption at that point, and that's when the Migos came out. The Migos, people don't realize this. The Migos were actually tied
75 were the Migos.
But I'm saying they were actually tied into the animated series, not the. It was like the licensing was different then. But and I've told you guys this before. I made a whole cardboard bridge for my Migo characters, and I made a little sick bay, and I made it's like all this stuff. I just kept getting these big flat cardboard boxes, and just expanding this thing, and I get to the point where like I had a kind of flat interior of the Enterprise that just covered like 8 square feet, and with corridors and stuff like that. But it
was Todd Condoroga.
Because Todd Conderoy, yes, that's right. That's exactly what it was, Barry.
But that's
wow.
the thing is like we do.
Yep. And you know, it's funny, Barry, you say that, but
now.
I've looked at the set, walked around, and like I would not have put my transporter room here. You know, it was like I had a transporter room, and it was like I would not have put it there. But that's funny.
I didn't do any of that.
Yep.
Jeez.
No, but there was nothing to, there was nothing to go to.
You're trying to get. I remember buying the stuff like the walkie-talkies and the models.
Yeah, and
the
I
stuff.
tell you, my first crossover was Star Trek and Planet of the Apes. So that was, they landed on the Planet of the Apes, and they,
because those Migos were out around the same time.
That's what I'm saying. It was contemporary, and it was like you had nothing else to, So yep.
And I've told this story before. There was the Federation Trading Post in Manhattan that was a Star Trek store, and they would have commercials during Channel 11, and we begged my father to take us there, and he eventually did, and that's where I got my original badge, and I got a picture, and I got which you've seen, my 6-foot Spock poster.
So how long of a drive from your house to that store? Was that an hour from where you were? 2 hours?
It was probably it was maybe an hour. It depended on traffic, an hour and a half.
Yeah, my dad would never have taken me an hour and a half each way to go to a Star Trek store.
The funny thing is, I remember and I don't remember if we went on a Saturday or a Sunday, but they planned the whole, okay, let's go to the city, we'll go to the store, and then, we'll go see a museum, and we'll go to dinner. We'll make a day of it.
Now, if I had asked my dad to take me to Cooperstown, he would have done it, but not Star Trek.
Really? And my dad was huge into sports, and I wasn't, but he loved Star Trek too. So the funny thing is, the first time we went, and James Bond,
yes,
the first time we went, it was closed. So we had planned this whole trip.
Oh, it's brutal.
And we closed, so we were doing other stuff, and then we're like, we got to go back. We got to go back on a Saturday, and then he's like, okay, we'll go next weekend. This was like a couple months, and then that Saturday was pouring rain. And he's like, and my dad drove a lot for work. He actually, we lived in Central Jersey, and his office was in Queens. He worked for a safety company, so he drove a lot. He's like, it's pouring rain Saturday. I drive like. Dad, you promised. It was one of those, and we went. So I remember that place distinctly. Everything, walking up the steps, everything they had the phaser, for the Brad Nelson phaser that we now know what it is, for $75. There's no way in hell that would ever have happened, but that would have been amazing.
You would still have it. We know for a fact.
Yeah, if you bought that,
I probably would
have that. So you mentioned getting badges and stuff like that. What was, other than Migos, other than AMC model kits, not American Motors Corporation, AMT model kits, other than Migos, what were the first Star Trek things that you had? So, I mean, I always had the guns, the disc shooting guns that had no correlation.
The disc shooting guns which looked nothing like anything.
They just
Star
basically had a Star Trek backer card.
Yeah.
But was there anything else that...
The Remco phaser. That was a flashlight. I have one of them.
Yeah.
That was the very first thing I got.
I got the projector one. You gave me the projector one.
Now... There's two.
Yep.
One was sort of a cheaper flashlighty thing, and then one was like a phaser target game.
Yep.
The cheaper flashlights thing's the one I had.
Yeah, the target game was a Mego toy. The other one
was a Mego toy that tied in with the communicators.
Right.
And, I mean, I remember, and God bless my dad. I remember wanting those communicators, and he drove me around to like 6 or 7 different places to try and find them. And we'd ask, and people are like, I remember going to Radio Shack, because who the hell knew at the time Radio Shack sold electronics? Maybe they had them. And the guy's like, well, I got these. I distinctly remember, I got these communicators. You can't get Mr. Spock on them, but they're just as good. You know, guys trying to sell us like non-Star Trek. We got them at Two Guys in Neptune, New Jersey, Barry, where you stayed not that long ago.
Yep.
So
Neptune, I don't think it's there anymore. It was Two Guys in Neptune, New Jersey. I got my
anymore.
Communicators.
I
still have them.
I actually sent away for a phaser kit. Okay, I actually sent away for a phaser. And, God, I haven't thought about this in years. And I think it was like 99 cents plus 25 cents postage or something like this. And I got a wooden dowel and a thing that basically, it was like 2 cardboard boxes that you folded together and then put the other one. And
oh, really?
It was terrible. It was. I wish I had it today, though. I really wish I did. There was a plastic thing that looked like a spool on the front. There was no emitter, but that went in there, and it all went together. It all fit in, but like I put this thing together, and I was just sitting there looking at it, and it was just like it weighed nothing. It was a complete piece of crap. But it was like I was just the thing that I was most upset about was it took like 12 weeks. I mean, it's like I remember seeing this in this magazine, and it was like, you know, there were like kids in Star Trek uniform, you know, holding what looked like really realistic Star Trek phasers, but it was a line drawing.
Amazing.
And I get this thing, and like I said, it was cardboard, balsa wood, and a plastic cone.
It's still people scamming back then. They were still scamming people.
How many people bought sea monkeys
I made one out of
expecting
wood
them to have crowns
about.
on there, little fish with crowns on their heads? So come on,
can't
trust anything you see in a comic book.
Yep.
And the giant
I'm still waiting for them to grow. I'm still waiting for them to grow. Yep.
Remember the Frankenstein? It was like lifelike giant. My cousin ordered it. It was a poster of Frankenstein on like hefty bag garbage plastic.
Yeah,
but yeah, I made a wooden phaser that was not great, and I have it somewhere. I don't know where it is exactly.
Yeah, I did ultimately make one out of wood, and that, you know, I kind of shaped and but like I said, it was just it was and actually that was the hand phaser, the phaser one.
Oh, that part came out good.
And it was pretty good looking, and I forgot where I got the screen to cut for the top of it and stuff like that. But I remember consulting.
I remember I cut my screen. My dad used to actually dictate notes for his job, and he'd go through tape recorders. I remember he had one that he sort of wasn't using, so I took it and I cut up a piece of the metal.
This was something where I had a piece of like
I got to go find
little
that. It's
brass
upstairs.
Screen, and I actually cut it out, and it looked really good. And like I said, I remember bringing it in progress and showing Brian and our kind of collaborating on how we would make it, and how what I would do, and I remember drilling a hole in the front and putting like a little plastic jewel inside of it so it looked like it was red, but
that's
there
funny.
just wasn't the stuff. There was not the stuff then.
There was
and the model kit that AMT put out for the landing.
It was this big.
Even for our little hands.
It was great if you were 3. It was perfectly to scale if you were 3 years old.
How could they not make it big enough?
I know.
I actually used for the button on my Phaser 1 was a Lego tile.
That's good.
The flat Lego that you made roads out of.
That's good. Yeah.
And I also took one of the the volume knob.
Mine was a light bright pin.
Thing.
Mine was made of a light bright pin. So that's right. I'd forgotten that until you said that. It was a red light bright pin that I put in. I drilled the hole and I forced it in there. Yep. So
I think that was finished. I got to go find that. But so none of you had the phasers. I know this is sort of, we were talking about experiences. Now we're talking about stuff, but that's fine. No one had had the communicators or anything.
No.
I might have. I'll be honest. I don't remember having them. But I might have.
I had them.
I knew. I mean, there was a kid. I knew a kid that had them, but I didn't. I didn't have those.
I never ever saw any of the other stuff, and they made like the tricorder. They made the base station. I never saw that stuff.
Now,
anyway.
I remember playing with the communicators, but it could be that my friend Jeff might have.
That was at my house.
Yeah, it might have been.
That was at my house last year.
Well, maybe could be, but yeah, I remember having them in my hands, but I don't remember owning them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, even if I'd had my hands on those, I'd have traded them for a G.I. Joe thing. I was totally a G.I. Joe kid at a point when those were getting harder, and it's like when they just weren't making as many new things, and it was and I was getting a little old for it. But like I said, that was always my primary, and this other stuff was
that me too. I didn't really bring that into the conversation just because.
That's more.
But
that's
that was
more
my
of a
other.
thing. I'm talking about like
Mego, Star Trek, and G.I. Joe. Those were my two favorite toys.
Yeah, absolutely.
At that point in time.
And that was like contemporary, but one was more. One was just, it was an offshoot of being a kid, and it just kind of grew up, it was just kind of there still. But this was true geekdom. This was, you were connecting with this thing on a different level where you wanted to make things, where you wanted to acquire things. I think
but it was also the first thing that I ever watched on TV that I wanted that I could actually own, because G.I. Joe was my favorite toy, but there was no show that I could watch.
No, there was no
TV.
time. That's what I'm saying. That was all
Star
theater
Trek,
of the mind, and you had to make up your own stories and stuff. This was, we were reenacting. We were running around the backyard with our phasers, reenacting things. We had just, so we were pointing to a big rock and pretending it was the Horta and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the Star Trek Megos were the first thing that I ever was able to watch on TV, and because I don't remember having any of the world's greatest superhero Marvel characters or DC characters.
I had a lot of those,
but I know I had the Star Trek and the Apes, and those were the ones that I remember playing with the most.
Do you remember this? There was a company. I'm looking it up. I don't know if it's this company called Donmore who made Star Trek shirts in the 70s. They made short sleeve shirts with the emblems. I had a shirt that had a picture of Spock on it. It wasn't like an iron-on T-shirt thing. It was more like a regular, I don't know, different material, but it had a picture of Spock. So they made a line of shirts and stuff in like 75, and I had one of those.
Nope.
In 5th grade, we had to all do a speech on something we were interested in, and I did mine on Star Trek. I wore that shirt.
We had to do a speech.
Dave got his ass kicked at lunch.
We had to do a speech on something. We had to basically talk about a hero, and I remember, again, this is not a story, but I actually picked John Glenn, and I used a G.I. Joe in the spacesuit to like simulate spacewalking. I had him on fishing line and like two guys. Yeah. Anyways, like I said, so even then.
All right, so there was definitely costume and things and making things, or at least that we still sort of do today, but
right.
It's always sort of been in our blood.
Like
not
15
just
minutes ago, I asked
watching.
you the question: how old were each of you in '77 when Star Wars came out?
I don't. I
14.
feel like we do this conversation. I was 12,
right, and I was.
I think we do this conversation post Star Wars too.
No, I know.
Oh yeah,
but I'm just the point that I'm trying to make with it is, I was 9 when that came out. You guys were a couple years older than me, so the reaction that you had to Star Trek. That's what I had with I mean, I know you guys loved Star Wars too. But I was 9 years old is that perfect age. When you experience something like that at 9 years old. If I had
I was making lightsabers out of flashlights as soon as that, and costumes.
But it's a fairly short window, right? Because I was 16 when Return of the Jedi came out, and I was already moving on to other things. But 9 years old.
For me it was even prior to that, it was all science fiction stuff. Like I did the same thing. I made the stun gun and the comlink from Space 1999. When that was a thing for the 2 years that was out and almost impossible to see on syndication. So there was I remember watching UFO. I remember watching all these things, and I was just really hungry for this stuff.
And getting the UFO.
See, but I missed all of that stuff. I had Star Trek, then it was Star Wars and Galactica. I mean, it was like that was it.
Yeah, but that was in the 75-ish. They tried to just bring in as much sci-fi TV because of Star Trek. Now, was UFO British?
Yeah.
It's interesting, like, I have the Dinky toy, which, I still have the Interceptor. Like, they made stuff from UFO, but there were, at least then, there were no Star Trek things.
But, okay,
well, Dinky
was
made an Enterprise
that was made for European market. and
later.
No, but I'm saying that like the dinky stuff was made for the European market, so that's why they made Space 99.9. They made all that Gary Anderson related stuff. But I remember Captain Scarlet.
That's interesting.
I remember
I had the Captain Scarlet
Thunderbirds,
PV.
Okay, all that stuff.
Thunderbirds.
And like I said, I just sucked all of that up, which is why I had I think I had a different foundation before Star Wars. And
me too.
Dave, I just looked it up. The dinky Star Trek stuff came out in 1976.
Yeah.
Okay, a little later, but
Yeah.
I didn't have any of that.
No, I didn't either. But I did have the other. I had the Space 999 stuff, and I had some of the UFO stuff.
UFO and the Captain Scarlet and the,
and I never saw any of that stuff.
things.
I never saw UFO. I never saw Captain. I never saw any of that stuff.
Thunderbirds.
But we would get.
Never saw Thunderbirds.
I remember we
as a kid. I mean, I've seen it as an adult, but
we would be able to pick something out of the FAO Schwartz catalog for Christmas, like one thing, and I always went. Me and my brother both went to Dinky Toys, and that's why we got all those.
I tell you, Barry,
those things.
There was nothing on TV more Adventure Team than the Thunderbirds. It was just so. I mean, we I merged those two things in my head, and that was like you could picture the mold support vehicle like rolling out of the bay from Thunderbird 2. It was like it just
totally.
And,
I see that now as an adult, but for whatever reason, I stumbled on Star
Trek.
Oh,
it's just that it also was a syndication thing that went in cycles. The syndication thing that went in cycles, and I mean all those things. Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet I saw on Sunday morning, again in syndication, and and again, like I said, that's so. I also feel like when I saw Star Wars, I think it wasn't as groundbreaking for me because it was very different than Star Trek, but it wasn't drastically different than a lot of the British sci-fi stuff in terms of like the models and that kind of thing. It's like, I mean, they had some of the same makers as the people who made 2000, 2001 and Space 1999, that sort of thing. But
you know what? I just looked up. I just looked up the animated series Battle of the Planets that started in. We wanted to see what year it came out. It came out in '78. But that was another. I loved that. But that was like I knew about Saturday morning TV, and I knew that Star Trek was on when I came home from school in the afternoon. I never found that other stuff.
You may have been too young for all the British stuff because the good thing about New York was we had 3 independent stations. Now, Channel 11 had Star Trek, and I think they also had Space 1999, but everyone else was trying to get so Channel 9 had UFO, Channel 5 had whatever. So we had 3 stations that really were trying to, so you could watch a lot of that.
I watched all of this stuff, Dave, on an Albany station that we got that was crappy. Okay, that like it was, again it was broadcast, and it was like that was on an Albany station, and that was I can't even think what it was at this point, but yeah.
So we've been for 50 plus years. We've been not only watching and reading, but making and wearing and inventing, and some people don't. Like I know my brother liked that stuff, but it never went beyond watching stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the and this is what like. So I've been dealing with nerdy kids for the last 25 years in my different jobs, and my theory is that we were very rare in our time. Okay, there weren't a lot of nerdy kids, but we had to focus our efforts to find these things and get to, what I'm saying? Like you had to be home at 4:00 so you could watch the reruns, and you had to make decisions about that. The VCR kids were different. Their parents could show them all the things that they thought were cool when they were a kid. My mother could describe movies to me that they're really cool movies, and we'd try to find them when they were on, like whatever. But there was no, it's like Forbidden Planet. Maybe you saw that once every 2 years. It was a different kind of thing. It was a completely different kind of thing.
We just figured it out. All the nerdy kids were in California.
Oh yeah, that's
the thing.
Yeah. We just weren't
when we
there.
have Brian on, I want to get a sense of timelines and stuff because, again, this is he's got pictures of him and like 6 or 7 people in full Logan's Run outfits.
Yep.
Like, I couldn't get. I remember seeing Logan's Run. It was like, oh my god,
Yep.
That's probably the first big screen science fiction movie that I saw in the theater. I gotta believe it.
And I don't think I
before-
saw it
can't-
until years later. I don't think I saw it in
No,
the
I
theater.
saw it in the theater.
I was 8. I don't think my
76.
parents would have
Almost
taken me to see
positive that one. I saw it the first time. I saw it twice. I think I saw it in a drive-in the first time. So
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything. I mean, before Logan's Run, from like 2001: Space Odyssey to Logan's Run, there was like Silent Running. There were a couple, but there wasn't a hell of a lot.
No.
So that
TV.
was definitely
It
the
was
first
TV
science
was
fiction.
probably
But-
sci-fi was totally a TV thing.
But here's Brian and 6 or 8 of his friends, including girls, dressing up as. So we're going to dig into that
Yes,
when we have
yep.
him on next. 'Cause
Yep.
I don't know how that happened.
Yep.
But all right, we'll pick this discussion up again.
Well, we
So
got to
it
do
wasn't
the
as
7.
bad
We
as-
got to do we got to do post Star Wars.
Yes,
you know,
post
Star Wars.
It's good that we kept it
and
pre
post,
Star
and
Wars.
that's this is the
Yeah.
yeah. So also
Okay,
the only other
we're
the
go-
other piece I want to squeeze in there, just say Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes was the
Yes, Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes was the other thing that, like I said, I think the third one was the only one I actually saw in the theater. The first one I saw in the theater. I didn't see I was too young for the first two. They were supposedly too adult for me. I did see the third one in the theater, and on a Saturday afternoon, and I was crushed when the series was canceled. I actually, as Dave and I tried watching the animated series. I did watch the animated series.
Horrible.
But
we did see all of them in the theaters because every time they came out, they did like double features.
Oh,
and there
see,
was
yeah,
a
that's
time
the
when
thing.
they did
Yep.
all 5.
Yep.
And I remember seeing the ad in the newspaper for all 5 in the theaters. You
When
could go and
I
spend
was in
10
college-
hours. We didn't do that.
And when I was in college, I worked in my student job was working in the theater, and we had laser discs of the first 4 films, and so I actually watched the first 2 myself in the theater on Laserdisc. So I got to see it in the big screen for the first time. Like I
that's
said,
cool.
at like 9:00 at night. But I got to see it in the theater.
We went to, and I've told you, we went to a ton of double features. Always James Bond double features. Like my parents are bringing. I had to be as early as 6 or 7, and my brother was a couple years older. You're bringing kids to the movies for 4+ hours. I don't know. I guess we were good.
See, that's why
We'd
there
see
were 5 kids in my
Barbra
family. That's why
Streisand,
we
Planet
did.
of the Apes,
Like
and
I saw so
stuff.
much of this stuff in a drive-in.
But we also had the 4:30 movie
Yes.
that would have Planet of the Apes week. So
Right, yeah.
on Channel
Right,
7.
and we've
But
talked
anyway.
about this a million times, but when they ran it on the 4:30 movie, they started after the ship crashed. I never saw that opening scene of them in the spaceship
Oh, yes, yep.
until I saw it on Laserdisc.
And I will tell you, when I read the comic adaptation, okay, I was like, "Where's this scene?" And because I tell you, whenever they played it on TV, they started with
They cut those things to ribbons.
and
yeah.
it was. I read the comic, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. They made up this scene that took place before, and where he looks in the capsules and all that kind of stuff, and that was just they just trimmed
As
that.
far
right
as
out.
I knew, the movie started with Taylor on the planet. I had no idea.
Well, the thing with the 4:30 movie, so there were 5 days. They would take the first one and split it over 2 days,
Yep.
still editing it. Then they would do only 3, and they would take a 2-hour movie and put it into 90 minutes with
commercials.
I didn't see it
which
like
was
that. I saw it
ridiculous.
like a Sunday night movie, and I still didn't see that scene. So that's interesting.
I'm glad that Dave and I have the same experience, though, because we were both watching them on Channel 7 in the
Channel 7.
Yep.
The 4:30 movie, which was, and that's then they'd have sci-fi and they'd like run. They probably ran Forbidden Planet, but they'd run all those 50s and 60s. But they took movies. I mean, you really probably get maybe 70 minutes of a 120-minute movie.
So
but I'll never. I vividly remember the opening animation of the 4:30 movie.
If I got home if I came right home from school, I could watch a half hour of Dark Shadows before Star Trek, and my mom and I watched a ton of Dark Shadows. And I've actually gone back and rewatched. It was terrible. It's utterly terrible. I mean, it's basically a gothic vampire soap opera, and it was just, I don't know what they were smoking when they came up with the idea for this, but I love that. And it was just it also, I think that's one of the things that kind of got me into serialized things, where I was like always much more interested in something like Star Trek versus Star Wars, where it's just this closed story at the time, because it was just this, it's like, you'd see threads, and so.
Cool. All right, we'll talk more about this stuff. All right, we're gonna go. Are we gonna just do a couple different things? Like, what Todd's gonna do what's in the box. I'm gonna do workbench. Barry, what have you decided?
I'm gonna do workbench. I'm gonna hold my what's in the box.
Okay. Todd, why don't you do your what's in the box? Okay. We call this potpourri.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I've got another name for the next segment, the next aspect of this. Anyways, so this is a Batman statue. This is from Batman the Animated Series by it is Iron Studios. I just got this from our sponsor. Absolutely love this.
Oh, nice.
So
the cape's awesome.
He is in the pose from the beginning of the show where he's standing on the rooftop, and that's exactly the lightning flash behind him pose. And so this is going to go on the top of one of my cabinets, so he looks like he's on a rooftop.
That's cool.
I just, again, my favorite animated thing ever. And I've got a couple different, I've got a one from the later seasons with the different logo, and I've got a smaller one that's, I think it's plastic, but this is polystone. It's pretty awesome, and
that's cool.
It looks great.
I love the way the cape is flowing. It's
it's just beautiful with the blue. Yeah. And they got everything perfect. And I continue to be in mourning of Kevin Conroy, so this is just part of my shrine. So, yep.
Nice.
And so now this next segment we called "What are you building for, Todd?" or "What will he be asking you for when you don't have a place for it?" Go ahead. Yep.
You want to go first, Dave? Or you want me to go?
I'll go, since I actually gave it to you already. This is a really simple one. So I don't remember if I mentioned this on the show, but so in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, there's several issues. Several episodes have, they're in the mess hall and they're eating and drinking. And I noticed several people are drinking out of a Star Trek mug. I'm holding up the Star Trek mug, and I've made the Star Trek mugs that I've seen from the movies, the JJ movies. I found the mug and made that, and I'm like, oh, that'd be a cool thing to make. So there's I'm a Facebook group. It's something like Star Trek prop makers and collectors or something. And there's a guy. Did I tell this on the show?
No, we
talked about it
offline.
Okay, so there's a guy who's a member of the group who works in the prop department of Strange New Worlds, and he'll always answer questions about what something is or whatever. So, excuse me. I posed the question in the group. I'm like, hey, here's a picture of the mug. That mug is cool. I've been looking around to try to find the exact mug it is. And the guy answers. He's like, oh, yeah, we got those mugs like in the first season. Let me dig it up and I'll see. So the guy literally posted where they bought them. They bought them from Crate and Barrel 2. There's a Crate and Barrel 2. Posted the model of it. And then I bought 6 of them, and I cut out this little Star Trek symbol on my vinyl cutter. I know I sent both of you guys have one.
It's awesome.
I've got one for Brian and one for Daryl. But like, here's the thing where it's a found object, and literally the guy who makes the stuff on the show is in a group telling people where to find that stuff. So I thought that was. I'm not going to mention his name just because.
Yeah.
I don't know if he wants that kind of publicity.
So we have this mug. We have the. I've been thinking about it. I've looked at a couple different sets of them. I think I'm going to buy a set of the off the shelf mug that Picard used in Next Generation. You know, the glass thing with the handle.
Oh, those sort of clear glass
and
ones.
you can find set.
There's definitely those. The specific one is somewhere.
Yes, and you can find. I've looked at sets of fours of those. I think I'm going to get a set of 4 and give you guys each one, and then we can have like 3 Star Trek mugs. You know, we get like just kind of.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And then we just.
But this
and
was
then
awesome.
We need
the guy was literally
we need
like,
to get a styrofoam cup, spray painted silver.
Oh, the painted silver.
Yeah.
Spray painted silver, and then we'll have the whole collection.
You know, they do make. Is it Factory Entertainment makes the Star Trek
China?
Is it China from? Is it Undiscovered Country or something?
Yeah, I actually I had
with the
False
cup
Craft
and
made it
saucer.
at one point, and I had a set of that, and I had it from
But it says like,
yeah.
Is it the Excelsior that has it?
No,
I
it's
don't
the
remember,
Enterprise. It
something
was
like
the Enterprise,
Yeah.
and I still have a couple pieces that aren't broken, but yeah.
But this is cool. The guys, and there's been other stuff on the show, like they wore these goggles and they had these like lights on their vests and stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, this is what we did. This is where we bought it, and this is what we did to
That's
it."
awesome.
So it's really awesome that
it's a great
he's
resource.
able to do that stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. So anyway, that was on my workbench, and I made about 6 of them.
Cool.
And they were only like $4 mugs, which was awesome.
That's great.
So Barry, what do you got?
So neither of you are going to want me to build you one of these, so don't get too excited. But
Okay, is it a Willow thing?
it's not. It's a '69 Camaro
It's awesome.
model that I finished. I literally put about 100 hours into this.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Jesus, you could have built a
Probably
real
could
one.
have built a real car. It was a learning experience because I haven't built a model car other than Jeeps, right? I built a couple of Jeeps, but I wanted to see if I could build a car that actually looked like a car and have it be a shiny paint job and do the whole thing. And I started watching a lot of videos and understanding the sort of order of operations you have to do when you're building a car like this. And it's kind of amazing. Like, and I ultimately did find out, I just bought this kit randomly one day at Hobby Lobby. If I were doing it again, I might not have done that because as I found out from watching YouTube videos, this turns out to be a pretty hard kit to get to fit together properly. And I ended up having to cut pieces off the bottom of it to get it to fit like I watched other people do in YouTube videos. But, you know, you've got to do the interior, you got to do the engine, and you've got to do the interior, and you've got to do the chassis, and you've really got to do it in the right order. I did a couple coats of clear coat over the paint to try to get it to be shiny. I mean, you might not be able to see it in the camera here, but like all the window trim was masked and painted, and
God.
every little Camaro emblem is done in one of those Molotov chrome pens. There's a lot of shit went into building this thing. I'll take some pictures of it. I'm happy with the way it came out. I'm not super happy with the way it came out, but like the hood doesn't exactly fit on properly. It's good enough, but it does open, and there's a fully detailed engine in there. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera.
Barry knows somebody who had a '69 Camaro that the hood didn't fit on properly either. So
Yeah, there's plenty of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, fully detailed underneath too. It's got an orange engine.
Oh, that's cool.
It's you know, the interior is fully detailed. I'm happy with it, but I'm glad I did it. I don't know that I'll be building a whole lot of model cars because it's really, like, I'm not kidding. It was about 100 hours of work.
So Barry, you started out with an extraordinarily ambitious project with the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
And one by one, you've ticked off every model builder, pretty much every model builder. You did a car, you did tank, right?
I've done a couple tanks,
an airplane.
I've done a couple of airplanes. The thing I haven't done yet is like a battleship, and I do want to do
I was just going to say, what is
an aircraft
the thing?
carrier or a battleship or something like that.
Okay. Interesting.
That's
But
cool.
I just like doing different things to challenge myself and to learn new techniques is really why.
No, that's awesome.
Why I
That's
did it.
good.
I
I'm
mean,
glad you-
you know,
I know so many
I-
modelers that have like every airplane, you know, every World War II plane or every, you know, fighter jet or whatever like that, and you're so diverse in what you do. It's really more about the technique and trying different things different. I really respect that. That's awesome.
what it is. I just want to try different things. I mean, sometime you guys will see this in person, but like all these little emblems were done and then added onto the body. It was a lot of work. But
I was thinking about your modeling stuff, especially after seeing the X-wing in the upcoming auction. Now, when I was a kid, I built the X-wing from Star Wars. That probably was either right after Star Wars or right after Empire. I built it. Now, I don't remember what company that was. Revell, maybe.
No,
I don't know
think
who
those
made
were also AMT
X-wings.
They weren't
now,
monogram?
are those the same?
Well, a
Monogram,
lot of
maybe?
those companies all got bought by each other, and stuff that started out as one company came out as another. But I do believe they started out in 77 as or 78 as AMT models.
So that was my question. What ones would that have been that I made? And my follow-up question is, and this will be in an article because we're talking about it on a podcast.
MPC.
What?
MPC was the company.
MPC, that's right. What were those the X-Wing models that they used in Jedi?
Yes.
Would it have been that brand?
They were the ones they used for the background X-Wings. They still...
I'm not saying, but...
Yeah, and now what's really interesting is there was a Millennium Falcon kit that came out back then. It was very inaccurate, but it like the side walls were way too tall, and there was a lot of inaccuracies with it. They just reissued that kit. It literally just came out within the last few months. They went back and they retooled pieces of it to make the side walls shorter and add a little bit more detail onto it. So you can buy a brand new version of that MPC Millennium Falcon. I think they've done the X-Wing also.
I'm thinking I don't build models really. I want to build the one I built as a kid, but also if it's the same one that they use, because I'm inspired by the one in the auction. So
those are the ones that they used for the background ones in Jedi. Yeah,
I remember.
And maybe and they might even have used some of them in Empire.
As we know from reading the history book, they actually used AMT model kits in the third season of Star Trek. That they actually used Star Trek model kits.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
And so it's kind of the snake eating its own tail kind of thing. It's like it's just really interesting how that happens, where they're making.
It became a lot less expensive than building another giant studio scale model.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But really.
Have you built? How many X-Wings have you built?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, but they're all small. I haven't done a
small
big
ones.
X-Wing yet.
Yeah, it was maybe like this big. The one.
They've reissued that one.
I
keep waiting for them to put out they just released a studio scale TIE Fighter model kit, which is a brand new tooling. It's big. I'm gonna probably buy it and build it over the winter. But I want them to do that with the X-Wing and do because none of the model kits they've ever released of the X-Wing at that scale were even close to right. And now they have examples where they could make them much more accurate.
Yeah.
Like the 148 scale ones that Bandai makes are great. They're just small.
But are those pre-painted and everything, or?
No. I mean, they're molded in some different colors, but every one I ever built, I repainted.
You painted, okay, yeah. Anyway, all right. More on that in another show. Okie doke. We got an hour and 20 minutes out of something that we didn't think we'd have any time to talk about.
Can I throw something out as a quick final thought?
Sure.
So, we talked a couple weeks back about my trip to California, and I wasn't going to really talk about this aspect of it, but my good friend Tom Spina made it public today, so I might as well just tell the listeners of the show. So when I talked about meeting some amazing people from Hollywood, Tom did post in the Regal Robot fan group today a picture of us with Phil Tippett, Dennis Muren, and John Berg. We got to hang out with those guys for an afternoon and eat pizza and listen to them.
Did you build models?
We did. I would have loved to have built models with those guys.
You should have brought a model kit. Can we build this? How awesome would that be?
Just to hang out with them and have a pizza party and talk to them for hours about making movies and Star Wars and Jurassic Park and everything else was just a really mind-blowing experience that I told you guys about off the air. I wasn't going to mention it on the podcast because I wasn't going to do that. But since Tom posted the picture and 400 people commented on the picture already, I figure it's public knowledge now. So
there you go. No, awesome. Once in a lifetime.
Not bragging. Just figuring I'm completing part of the story that I couldn't tell the last time we talked about it.
And since you did mention Jurassic Park, if you get like a spare minute, Google Owl Kitty and Jurassic Park. It's hilarious. It's utterly hilarious. Owl Kitty, Jurassic Park. It if you're having a bad day, it's just it's great.
Very funny. So.
Cool. Okie dokie. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.